Why does this always happen to me? And I regret to inform you that you're not hurting anyone. With this needle, it doesn't impress me much.
Hello and welcome to the Faded Wildflower Crochet. My name is Rachel and I was recently at Five Below when I saw these two crochet kits and I just couldn't resist them and I bought them both. And I originally was going to put these together in one video, but the truth is I've kind of been overdoing it lately with my hands and I just want to be careful not to do too much crocheting. So I put a poll up here on YouTube and then I also put one on Threads asking which one of these kits you wanted to see first. And strangely enough, the YouTube one had Snoopy winning in a landslide, but Threads had Piglet winning in a landslide. And so I wasn't really sure which to pick, but I decided to go with Snoopy just because it technically got more votes, even though the percentages had Piglet winning. The number of votes had Snoopy winning, if that makes sense, because a lot more people voted on YouTube than they did on Threads. Anyway, I'm over explaining this. I'm going to be doing a Snoopy kit review today. And I will say Piglet perhaps for a bonus video or a short form video. I'm not sure yet, but stay tuned for that. So today we are going to be making Snoopy here, who I think is so cute. I love this design. And I have done a few Five Below kits in the past, and I haven't always been that impressed, but here's to hoping that they've improved a little bit. We will see. Let's go ahead and get a closer look at this. Okay, so here is a look at the outside of the packaging. I think this Snoopy design looks so adorable. I really hope this works out because I think this will be the perfect gift for a Snoopy lover in my life, but we'll just wait and see if it actually turns out cute or not. But I do find it really funny that right here it says, the needle contains functional sharp point, used with care to be used under the direct supervision of an adult. And then right here it says that it's a plastic needle, which we've had these plastic needles before and they're never very sharp. So I do find it funny that they warn you about that. I know they have to probably for legal purposes, but it also does say 6 and up right here on the packaging, which was the same thing with the stitch one that we did. And no, I feel like that is way too young of an age to be I mean, let me know. Do you have any 6-year-olds in your life that crochet? I don't know. Let's look at the back of the packaging here. Of course, it shows us everything that we will get in this kit. And I'm actually kind of impressed that right here it says intermediate skill level knowledge of basic crochet is required. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that it said that on the outside of the packaging of the stitch kit that I did. And a lot of people pick that kit up thinking that it's going to be for beginners. And I know this because I get comments still to this day on that video saying, I thought this was going to be a video of you going step by step and telling me how to do this because this is too hard for beginners. And yeah, that kit was not for beginners. And so I do like that it says it right here on the outside of the packaging. So, I mean, people could miss this, but it's nice that it is at least on the outside of the packaging to let people know the skill level that you need in order to do this. So let's go ahead and open this up. Okay, so here is everything our kit comes with. And I feel like I'm getting deja vu right now because this is very similar packaging wise to the other Five Below kits that I've done. I'm pretty sure this is the exact same paper that I've gotten in other kits, like the basics of how to crochet. So somebody is packaging these for them somewhere and, you know, putting them. And also I do think some of these kits have been at other places before and they're repackaging them for the purposes of selling at somewhere like Five Below. So if anyone has more information on that, I would be curious to know because they all do have a similar look and feel to them. But anyway, like I said, it does come with this paper that tells you the basics of crochet. We have our pattern here. We have our hook here, which is, again, I always call these a boy hook because it's very similar to a boy hook, which is really not bad. It's just a kind of standard metal hook, but it is quite sturdy. And then we have our yarn here, which is, again, that yarn that is not the softest, but not the scratchiest either. It's not terrible to feel, but you can tell it's not the highest quality either. And then we have our little bag of stuffing here. And then this is the needle.
this is the one that they were warning you about, and I regret to inform you that you're not hurting anyone. With this needle, it is not very sharp, but you know, it's there. I will attempt to use it as I always do with these kits, and I will attempt to use the hook as well, which I'm assuming this hook is like the other ones that I've tried in these kits, and it's going to be pretty standard to crochet with. We will see, but I probably will end up switching to my own hook just because this one doesn't have a grip on it. And again, I'm trying to be careful on my hands, so I will give this a try, but I will most likely end up switching to my own hook. And this one is a 3.5, by the way, in case you're curious. So without further ado, we are going to start crocheting our little Snoopy here, and I will check in with you guys in a little bit. Okay, checking in a bit sooner than I expected because I think I'm going to have to start over. So I did start with this hook that came with it, which again, it's just a standard boy hook. You know, if you've used a boy hook before, then you would know that, you know, they're pretty standard. They're pretty good. Not bad at all. And I mean, this one, like sometimes they come with little scratches on them. This one, you know, it's pretty decent. Not bad at all. But I did go ahead and switch to my own hook, which this is a clover hook in the same size. So that's a 3.5, and so is this one. I do like to put pencil grips on my crochet hooks just because it makes it even a little bit more comfortable to hold. However, I am finding that you can still see, you can't tell on camera, I feel like, as well as you can in person. Yeah, no, you can't. It looked kind of fine on camera, but in person you can see that. Oh my gosh. Why does this always happen to me? I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to make a point about something, you cannot tell on camera that there are gaps in this, but maybe a little bit right there. Can you see? I just think for my own personal attention at this moment in time, the 3.5 hook is a little bit too big. This is, you know, not the thinnest yarn ever, but it's not thick either. So I'm going to go down to a 3.25, which I think is just going to be better for my own liking. Again, I could probably get away with using this because on camera it looks fine, but in person, I don't like seeing gaps in my work, and I can see some gaps there, even if you can't. So I'm going to switch to a 3.25 and start over since I haven't got that far in yet. And I was working on this and I didn't realize that we were making it this way where, you know, this is like the end of the nose and then we're going to make the rest of the head. I thought this was the top of his head. And I'm like, why is the top of his head so pointy? So no, we're going this direction. So this is his little Snoopy snoot. So anyway, I'm going to take this out and I'm going to start over. But again, pretty standard hook and pretty standard yarn so far. Okay, you guys, so here is the finished head for Mr. Snoopy. It is quite tiny, as you can see. Now, I did go down a hook size, so I went from a 3.5 to a 3.25. So that is going to affect the size a little bit, but the max number of stitches on the head is only 30 around. So it is quite tiny as it is. Now, as far as the way this pattern is written, I'm having no problems whatsoever. It's written in a very standard way. The math is mathing, so I'm having no issues with that. The only issue that I had, unfortunately, is that the yarn was all messed up. As I showed in the clips, the strands kind of all came apart here. I don't really know what happened there, but I did have to cut that section out and attach a new piece, which isn't a huge deal, but is a little bit frustrating. Now, that is the only problem I've had so far, unless you want to count this needle's existence as a problem in and of itself. This needle is so terrible. I don't know why they warned anyone that this was sharp, because that's false expectations. This thing is not sharp at all whatsoever. I was having such a hard time getting it through my stitches. I did actually sew up the back of it with this, but that's all the use I'm going to get out of that because I'm going to move on to my own needle for the rest of the sewing. I just don't understand how you could even do any sort of precise sewing with a needle like that. It's awful, but you know, again, I don't even think I mentioned this, but this kit only cost $5. So there is a certain level of expectation of what the supplies are going to be like. But I have had $5 kits include a metal needle, but not this one. So that is that. We're going to move on. I think the next thing in here is the nose. But first, I'm going to go have some lunch and then get comfy cozy on my couch. And I'll check in with you guys at some point. Okay, so I did finish the nose, the ears, and the body, and I finished these in record time. This is such a quick pattern. And before I give you some more of my thoughts on the kit so far, I usually like to chat with you guys as I'm working on a project, but because this is so small, I haven't had the opportunity to, but I have to know, what is your favorite Peanuts movie? I feel like it's a really hard choice between the pumpkin, the Great Pumpkin, and the It's Christmas Charlie Brown. I think that's what that one is called. They're both really good. And I mean, the two best holidays. When I was younger, of course, Christmas was my favorite holiday. But now as I'm getting older, I love and appreciate Halloween more and more. So it's a really hard choice for me. I think if I had to choose, I would probably pick the Great Pumpkin, but that's a really hard choice. So you'll have to let me know which one of the Charlie Brown movies. And have you guys seen the new one that's like computer, like 3D animated? I personally don't like that one very much, but my kids like it. So I don't know. You'll have to let me know your opinions on that one as well. But let's talk a little bit more about this pattern. So again, this is so incredibly tiny. I don't know what I expected from the photos, but this is so tiny. Now, again, this is reminding me so much of the stitch kit that I did. And that one was pretty small, but not this small. It's just so tiny. Now, speaking of the stitch kit, I did do a little bit of investigation that, you know, I just checked the website. It's at the bottom of these instructions here. And I went to the website called Innovative Designs. Now, I was trying to figure out who made this pattern and if perhaps this was another stolen pattern situation similar to the Chucky one that I did, but I could not find an exact match for this. If you guys know, you know, let me know. There's a lot of Snoopy patterns out there, but not one that fits this exact level of design. But I went to that Innovative Designs, and that just appears to be a company that does branding with, like, they work with the licensed character and then help turn their branding into crochet kits and other such things. So they have that right there on their website, all of the Stitch kits and all of the Winnie the Pooh kits and all of these Snoopy kits as well. So I was correct. It is one company that is putting these all together. But anyway, about the pattern itself, it's going really well. And again, I wanted to figure out if I could credit a certain designer for this. I really wish that they would put that on the packaging, but unless I missed it somewhere, I don't know who wrote this pattern. Somebody wrote it and they did a good job because so far the pattern is really good, really easy to understand. The one thing I'm a little bit confused about is, what is this little chart? I mean, I guess I understand what they're getting at because when you make the ears, you go around the starting chain. And I think that's what they're trying to get at with this. I'm trying to not give away too much of the rest of the pattern here. But why is this column in a darker, like this is all white and then this is like off-white? Why did they do that? Is there a reason for that? Am I missing something? I have no idea. But I would say that that's probably one of my criticisms of this pattern is that there is the one photo here, the one chart here, and that is it in terms of photos. You don't see Snoopy from any other angles or anything like that, which, you know, I understand they're printing it on this paper. And I mean, this is at least in color, I will say that. But there is no other photos so that you can see the process of things. Now, they do tell you you need to be an intermediate crocheter to do this pattern. So they're not expecting beginners here. But if you were like somewhat of a beginner, it could be helpful to have just a few little in-process photos around. But that might be asking too much. I don't know. But I'm having no other problems with the pattern whatsoever. It's just very simple, very straightforward. Well written. I'm still having problems with this yarn though. I mean, there's another section there and I had to end up cutting off, oh, where did it go? I had to end up cutting off a whole section this time because this was all unraveling and coming apart, which is just really, really frustrating. Now, luckily they do give you quite a bit of the yarn, so I'm not going to run out of this, but I mean, if I had a looser tension, was using a bigger hook, I might be worried about that, but again, it's such a tiny, tiny pattern. I do think that they give you plenty of yarn. I just wish the yarn was better quality. But also another thing about the yarn is that this black yarn, so this is rolled into a skein, which is ready to work from. The black yarn, however, was in a hank, as I kind of showed in the clips. If you don't already know, if you try to work from a circular, you know, you call that a hank. If you try to work from that, it's just going to get all tangled up. So it is always better to go ahead and work it into a ball or a skein to work from. But a lot of people might not know that picking this up and would try to work from it and it would probably get all tangled. So I always get a little bit frustrated when kids do that and they just don't take that extra little step to go ahead and roll it into a ball or a hank. So, you know, maybe nitpicky, but that's basically all I have to say about this kit so far. It's pretty straightforward. And I only have the arms, feet, and collar left, and then the sewing together. And of course, the embroidery of the eyes and smile, and that's it. So this is going really, really quickly. And I mean, so far, pretty good. More of my thoughts later, but I'm probably going to end up going ahead and finishing this up, and then we'll get to my final thoughts at the end. Actually, I'm not done talking yet. I realized after I turned off the camera that there was one nitpicky thing I forgot to address. And you may have seen me struggling in the clips with this, but they don't tell you to stuff this piece until the very end. And this is only 8 stitches around here. So it is quite a struggle to get the stuffing in with such a tiny piece. Now with the head, they told you at a certain point, start stuffing and then continue as you go, which is usually when I write patterns, I like to write it that way. And that's generally how I like to do it with amigurumi, is that you start stuffing a little bit earlier on and then continue on, because if you wait till the end, especially with such a tiny little piece here, it is quite hard to get the stuffing in there. Again, as an experienced crocheter, I knew that and I could have stuffed this before, but I was kind of being a little bit cheeky and doing exactly what the pattern called for. And that's quite difficult. So that's again, just kind of a little nitpicky thing. Also, I realized I forgot to talk about the stuffing. And this stuffing is pretty good. It's, you know, a little bit softer than I like. I always talk about the range of softness to grittiness when it comes to stuffing. I really like the brand Polyfill, which is a pretty basic brand that you can get almost anywhere. But that one is soft, but it still has a certain amount of grit to it so that it doesn't clump up too much. Sometimes a stuffing can be really soft and it just kind of clumps into itself. But you can also get stuffing that's so gritty that it's just not soft and not nice to work with at all. This one is slightly on the too soft side, but once you break it up just a little bit, it's perfectly fine. And they did give you quite a bit of it. So I will definitely reuse the rest of what is in here because it's not too bad. So those are all my thoughts, I think, unless I forgot something else. But otherwise, I will see you after I'm done with Mr. Snoopy here. Okay, y'all, so my Snoopy is done. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really like how he turned out. This is one of those circumstances, which I feel like is pretty rare, where things were going pretty well for the first half, and then they just quickly went downhill. And in the end, I don't really like this. Whereas a lot of times with kids, it's going pretty bad all the way through. And then in the end, at least we get something cute out of it. But in the end, I just don't really love this. So the main thing I don't like are the feet. Can you see that? They just look lumpy and bumpy and strange. And the main reason is because this pattern calls for doing double crochets and double crochet increases and decreases and all of that for the feet, which I know some patterns like to do, but I do not personally prefer using double crochet on amigurumi unless it's a part of the plushie that's not going to be stuffed. But any section that's going to be stuffed, I just don't really like using double crochet because it just does not look right to me. I know what they were going for with the shaping, but it did not turn out well in my opinion. And I thought about trying to redo it and maybe trying to just like pull my stitches tighter or something. I don't know. I was going to, but I had it up to here with this yarn at that point. That also just continued to get worse and worse as it went on, and I was just done. I was not going to work with this yarn anymore. It just kept falling apart into all those separate strands, and I just don't know. I don't know what happened. It got damaged somewhere in the processing of it, and they should not have put this in the kit. But we'll get to my thoughts on that. But overall, I'm just kind of sad that I don't have something super adorable and cute to show you. And you guys know that a lot of times with these kit videos, I like to use my own yarn and replicate it and make some of the changes that I would like to see and all of that. But I realized that the only black yarn I have left on my shelf is really thin, like size 2 yarn. And this is already such a tiny pattern. I did not want to mess with such a small yarn on such a small pattern. It did not sound fun to me. And I didn't want to go out and purchase, like, I think a fluffy Snoopy would be so cute. And I have fluffy white yarn, but I don't have fluffy black yarn. And I didn't want to go out and purchase fluffy black yarn just to make a Snoopy. Maybe I will in the future, but for now, it's just not worth it. So that is that. I'm really sad to say that I don't really like him, but as always with these kit videos, I'm going to talk about some different aspects of this kit and say whether I give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a sideways thumb. So let's talk about the supplies. I think I want to go with a thumbs down. I think I'm gonna have to. As much as I like to try to be fair, whenever you only pay $5, it's fine if the yarn's a little scratchy. It's even fine, and I can forgive a kit for giving me a terrible plastic needle that doesn't really work. But what I can't forgive is yarn that is unusable. Yarn is probably the most important aspect of a crochet kit, and if the yarn is unusable, it makes the whole kit terrible. And like I said, with this white yarn, I was able to at least finish this, but it was really frustrating. I was having to cut off different sections, and I just don't think that even for $5, I think for that price, you still should expect yarn in a kit to be usable. So even though the hook was fine and the stuffing was fine, I still have to go with a thumbs down. I can't give this even a sideways thumb with how terrible that yarn was. So now let's talk about the instructions, which I think I'm gonna have to go with a sideways thumb on this one. And that mainly comes down to the assembly instructions and the lack of photos. So the assembly instructions are super bare bones. It's basically just like sew it together. Good luck. It really is not detailed at all. And if you're going to have super undetailed assembly instructions, then I feel like you should at least have photos of more than one angle. I feel like that could have helped me. So I feel like the legs, I mean, they don't look great as they are, just in the crochetedness of them. But I also feel like they probably would have looked better if I knew where to sew them on. But when you only have a photo from the side, it was kind of hard for me to tell exactly where to sew them to make them look right. And So I feel like you kind of have to do one or the other. Like you either have to have photos alongside the bare bones instructions, or you have to have detailed instructions telling you like what round to sew them to and all of that. Otherwise, it's just kind of, it doesn't impress me much. So that's kind of how I feel about the instructions in the end. The rest of them were pretty good and pretty standard, but I do feel like to get a thumbs up, you kind of gotta have a little bit more detail. So we'll go with sideways thumb. Now let's talk about the design. I can't really go above a sideways thumb on this one. And that's again, mainly due to the feet. You can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I just do not love the way they look. I don't like the way they're shaped. And I also, you know, when it comes to using double crochet as opposed to single crochet, I just think that the rest of it looks so nice and even, but then the feet look out of place because they're in a different stitch. I don't know if that bothers anyone else or if that's just a me thing, but I just don't love that design choice. Again, I know what they were going for in trying to shape them in this way, but it just does not work for me. And then the other thing that I was kind of confused about at first were the ears. Like, why do they have the white outline? But then I was looking at the photo of Snoopy here, and he does have the black in the middle with the white outline. So I guess I understand why they did it that way, but I don't know. There's something about the way the ears are laying, and that could have something to do with the yarn. It could have something to do with the way that I sewed them, but the ears aren't laying as nicely as the one in the photo, and I'm not really sure why. So, you know, again, it kind of is what it is at this point, and I wish that I could make some of these changes and redo him. I feel like the proportions are kind of just all over the place when it came to this. I don't know. And it's hard to know at this point because I haven't redone this pattern in my own yarn. If it is just the yarn that's causing this, is it the pattern that's causing this? I don't really know, but the design overall as a finished piece is just not as cute as I was hoping it was going to be. So sideways thumb it is. So let's talk about the price. I mean, at least it was only $5. I think if I paid any more for that, I'd be even more upset. But do I think it's worth $5? Probably not. As far as who I would recommend this to, I mean, again, be an intermediate and up. It does at least say that on the packaging. I would say that if you are just a huge Snoopy lover and you like collect Snoopy things, maybe this could be fun to add to your collection. Maybe you love this design and you have no problem with the lumpy, bumpy feet. You know what? That's your life. You know, I'm not going to say don't go purchase this. It's the worst thing ever. I just feel a little bit disappointed in the end because I was really excited about this design. And it kind of let me down a little bit. You would think that I would learn my lesson by now. I think, what did I say? This is my 4th Five Below kit. I thought maybe they've gotten better, but I would say no, they have not gotten better. It's pretty much the same across the board. Some are, you know, maybe a little better than others, but this one's just kind of meh to me. The one improvement I will say they made is that on the outside of the packaging, it does tell you that you need knowledge of crochet. It still does say 6 and up, which could be confusing to people, but at least they do say that you need some knowledge of crochet before purchasing so that people won't think this is a beginner kit. I mean, people probably will still buy it thinking it's a beginner kit because people don't like to read fine print, but at least they did put that on the packaging. I have to give that to them. So you'll have to let me know what you thought about today's video. Have you tried this kit? Have you tried the other one, the Piglet kit? I am kind of hesitant now to try that one just because this one was not the best experience, but eventually I will get to Piglet and hopefully that one goes better than this one. We'll see, but thank you so much for watching today's video. And as always, if you've made it to this point of the video, I want to know, what were you working on as you watch today's video? Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to come hang out again. You can join my Patreon or my YouTube channel members if you want monthly bonus content or access to the Discord. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time.